Hey, it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and where else would I be but here with you? DJ Stutz here with Little Hearts Academy and host of Imperfect Heroes podcast. So this week I am talking about just finding joy in parenting. Excuse me. And I have a guest this week. This podcast is available actually right now if you want to go. But my guest for this podcast is Craig Parks. And I wanted to read his little thing, let you know a little bit about him. So he is a dad of 2 kids, happily married, has been a camp director for 25 years, as well as being a professional musician. And he has learned a thing or two about creating joy, laughter, and smiles in place of stress. Nagging, strained relationships, none of that stuff. He can fix it and turn it around. So he has a little program called Parenting from A to E, and this helps parents learn to create lifelong, happy memories with their kids. And so music, activities, and rituals all elevate the mundane to the memorable. And I loved that term, taking the mundane to the memorable. And so he was amazing. And I loved, he had some songs that he shared with us. But his main message, guys, was so important and so amazing. And his main message was, when things start getting tight and tense and stressful, turn it around. Do something goofy. Do something silly. And get that turned around. So he has a son that is 17, and then a daughter who is 7. So they have a bit of a spread. And during COVID, they're all hunkered down. He can't do a lot of the things that he loves to do, but he did enjoy spending time with his daughter. And so they started just goofing around and making stuff, and they did a few silly videos on Facebook, and that turned into an event and something that they started doing every week. Now that COVID's basically over and he's able to go back to work, they do it more in a way of maybe once a month, but you can always find them there. And I've got all the information on how to find them in the show notes of the podcast. So if you want to find out how to find him, go to the podcast and look at the show notes. Hey, Julie, gosh, it's good to see you. And so if you want to find out, that's where you go, is to the podcast. Look in the show notes, and all that contact information is there. But he really talks about taking things and turning them around when kids are stressed out. So one of my favorite stories is how when his daughter was younger and she learned all about the word no, right? Love that word. It's a fun word for a 2-year-old, right? And so he wrote a song about it, and it's my favorite song in a long time. It is such a great song. Listen to the podcast to get the song. I would never dare to sing it for you, but he does a great job. But it's all about, oh, you've learned to say no, and it's an important word. And then he goes into fun things like, your favorite mountain is a volcano, and then she'll say, no, your favorite instrument is the piano, no. And he goes through all these different things. And so when she gets frustrated or putting her foot down, he jumps into this song and really turns things around. And the funny thing is that sometimes now she would start saying no just to get the song. And then she'd sing it and want to go off with him and do happy things. And this is such a great example of finding joy in parenting. And when you can take some of those situations that can be really frustrating as a parent and do something silly, have a tradition, have a ritual that you do that turns it around, it just is magic. And I'm sure all of you have done these things at some level or another, where you have a silly song that you wake them up with in the morning, or you have a song that helps them get into the car, get their shirt and pants on. Maybe you have, and maybe it's not music. Maybe it's just something like a silly joke or something you say and they know and they turn it around. And it's just such a fun thing. And I loved the way that he brought that in. So on the podcast, Craig shares 3 different songs for us, with us. And they're just great songs. And he also talks about the importance of these rituals. And he uses the term sacred with them. And I thought that was just so perfect, because some of these things that we do with our kids and that are building memories with our kids and strengthening our families and strengthening the relationships and all of that are sacred indeed, right? And we need to honor that and not let other things get in the way as best we can. So he talks about, having fun with the bath and getting your kids ready for bed. And of course, he has a song for the bath, and he has a song for brushing your teeth, and all of these fun things. And then going to bed and reading a story and then sharing a few things. And one of the things that he introduced, and I loved the idea, and I hadn't really thought of this before, and I can't remember the exact words, but it's what wishes for dreams. So I wish your dream about, running in the woods barefoot and the grass and moss are soft on your feet, and you give them kind of a hope that they will have these lovely dreams. And then his daughter would share her wishes for his dreams. And what a bonding time for that. It's just a wonderful thing. And he talks about he's been doing some recording, and he'll have some things out real soon on albums, and I'm sure Spotify and all those places where you get music. And so he's just about ready to release some of that. But I love that he did record the No song, and he recorded it with his daughter. So she's singing that with him. And so I just can't wait for that to come out, because I just really loved that song. And then he talked about even things like routines with getting dinner ready and making that fun, and getting them to eat different things and making that fun. And when they, his kids don't really argue. They're 10 years apart. And so he's escaped that part of having a couple of kids. But yet, kids still get frustrated, and they have their moments. And instead of bringing that frustration onto you, just look at them and love them and know that they are putting themselves out there. They are trying to manage some control in their lives. Sometimes it's inappropriately, right? And we have to say, nope, we're still not doing that. But you don't have to get frustrated and angry and stomp your feet and yell at them over it. There are other ways that are a lot more fun for everybody involved to move away from this point of tension and argument, right? We also talked a little bit about the importance of them having that loving and nurturing home environment, so that when daddy does come home or mommy comes home, that is like, hey, I'm so happy to see you, right? And I've been missing you all day. I had to do boring grown-up stuff, and I was wishing I could just have some fun with you. And then also making sure that they see you giving your spouse some attention as well. Oh, let me kiss that wife of mine or that husband of mine, and let the kids see that and know that mom and dad are doing well. They love each other, and I feel safe. And I feel safe in my environment and in my home and in my life. And if you can give those basic necessities, of like food, shelter, and safety, And that feeling of safety is included in feeling loved and cared about, and knowing that mom and dad are gonna be together. And yeah, they can have arguments and be, it's just part of life, right? We don't agree on everything. I've been married forever to my sweetheart, and we still don't agree on everything. But that's what makes us grow. That's what expands us. That brings us into our creativity so that we are looking beyond what we normally do and trying to problem solve in another way. And so really we don't want that to ever fully go away, but we want it to happen in a way that shows our children, here's how we resolve conflict, right? And this is what people do when you love each other. This is how we listen to one another. Maybe we try and adjust to make our loved one feel heard and try to do our best to meet their needs. And all of that's great. And our kids need to see us going through that process in a kind manner, right? And it can be frustrating, I know, but it's also just, okay, let me hear what you're saying again, because maybe I'm not understanding. Okay, so this is what I am hearing. Am I wrong? Am I right? Where am I? You go through all of that, and your kids are watching you closely when you're going through that time. And so you don't have a child who grows up thinking parents never argue, or parents argue all the time. And so life can be pretty miserable that way, but that's what they expect because that's what they've grown up with. But that, negotiations can take place and disagreements can take place, but it doesn't have to change the love that's in the home. And kids feel safe when that happens. And so I just loved listening to Craig. He just has so much to give and to expand on about really how do we find joy in parenting, which really is the goal of Little Hearts Academy and the podcast, is helping parents find joy in their life with their children. And the reality is, I'm promised, look at me, I'm not young, but that time goes so quickly. It really does. And I know it's hard when you're dealing with, the kid in the grocery store, or you're dealing with they won't put on their coat, or they're not eating that, right? And it's frustrating, but the reality is that time is so short. And when they're young is when you have the chance to really build on that relationship and make it something special that will survive their teen years and keep that love going. I was at church Sunday, and actually this dad has been on my podcast, Matt Ballard, and let me see, it was the spirit of giving instead of getting. So it was in December, before Christmas. And so I saw him at church, and he has a daughter that's a junior in high school and is a nationally ranked competitive swimmer. And she's gorgeous. She's so pretty, but she's also so very nice. She's just a nice kid to be around. But so church got over, and I'm sitting there gathering my things, and I see his daughter walking around to the front. Her dad had been busy doing some things with some other people. And in front of everybody, people are up, getting around. Her friends are there, doesn't matter. She went up and just gave her dad a great big hug, as a junior in high school. And I was like, oh, I love that. I love that emotion and that devotion. And he stopped whomever he was talking to, and everyone stopped for a moment. And she had her moment with her dad. And I think that she knew, this is me supposing and watching, but I think that she knew how important she was to him, and that maybe he needed the hug as much as she did, but she didn't care who was watching. And to have that kind of relationship in your teen years, you need to develop that when they're really young. And you only have so many years to do it. And that's why we focus on the years 8 and younger, is to help parents get to that place where they are developing that relationship early on, and then you can feed on that and continue with that as they get older. But we get those systems in place, we get those routines in place, and those sacred times that are for them in place. And so for that, I hope that, we use coaches for everything, right? We have life coaches, we have weight loss coaches, there's pitching coaches, and one-on-one, and coaches for every position in football that you can go if you want your child to excel and that's where they want to be and they're doing well. You can get a coach to help them take that next step forward. Nobody's embarrassed about any of that, and we don't mind paying a little bit of money to give our kids that one heads up. Why not a parenting coach? Especially when those kids are younger, or maybe even when you're pregnant, right? And so that you get started off on this right foot. And so if you or someone you know is interested in some parent coaching, we do one-on-one, we have some group, and honestly, I love the one-on-ones and they're great, but the group coaching is something really special and it's cheaper. So save some money. And you can get in with other parents who are going through the same kind of things you're going through. And someone may say something that might bring a question or a thought to your mind that you've never thought of before. Oh yeah, no, that makes me think, what about this? What about that, right? And so I really love the group coaching, and that really helps. Also, starting at the end of this month, we're going to have a free resource that's going to be available to families. So we're getting into that parent-teacher conference season. It's generally, I don't know, here in Denver, in this area, we're in Metro Denver, it's usually in March, right before spring break. And so we want you to be able to know what teachers are looking for, what information you need from the teacher. And there's a lot of things that, teachers need to know. In fact, we talk a little bit even about the daily conference that can take place, which is maybe just a hi, bye, and you're just connecting with a teacher, especially when your kids are really young. So I would say kindergarten and down. But then you can also tell them, oh, Susie woke up with a really bad nightmare last night. So there you go, right? Or grandma and grandpa are visiting and she's really excited. So that could be that she'll be overly excited and overstimulated about it. She may resent having to come to school when she wants to be with grandma and grandpa. And she may just be off because grandma and grandpa are using her bedroom and it's not where she's used to sleeping. Doesn't mean that she's upset about grandma and grandpa being there, but it's just a different routine. It's not her usual thing or his usual thing, right? And I can tell you that in 2 cases, and I talked about this, if you go back and look on helping children through grief, I talked a little bit about that, but I've had 2 students that have actually lost siblings while I'm teaching them, while I'm their teacher. And one group, the first little girl, her 8-year-old brother died of an illness, and it was a fairly sudden illness in the hospital, and she came to school the very next day. Parents didn't say anything to me. And so this little girl, who was usually so sweet and so wonderful, was just, I couldn't do anything right. She was mad at everything. And I would try to talk to her. I didn't know what was going on. So eventually I went and talked to her little best friend, and I said, hey, do you know what's going on with Sally? Like, she's usually not this way, and she seems really upset today. Do you know what's going on with her? Best friends usually do. And she said, yeah, her brother died last night. What? That would have been good information for the parent to know, right? And so that one might have been a good little parent-teacher conference, just a quick one as you drop off. And I know that people are dealing with their own stress and their own thing. And I get them wanting to let their daughter have something that is normal and routine, and not to mention a safe place to be while they're having to handle all the stuff that goes on when someone dies. But there's a grief that goes on with the child of losing that sibling that is very deep. The other kid that I had, her brother, and he was like 16, 17, around there, but he was actually killed in a drive-by shooting. Everyone knew about that, right? And she didn't come the next day, but she came, I think, the day after. And such a sweet little kindy kid, you know. And she was just super, super quiet. And so eventually I went over and just said, hey, do you have something you want to talk to me about? And then she told me. And so I didn't push it on her. But these are the kinds of things that you're going to find out about in that parent-teacher conference webinar. And so that's going to be available at the end of this month. So keep an eye on it. You're going to want to watch littleheartsacademyusa.com. That's the website. And I'll probably do an extra live, and I'll do a live on Instagram too, because I'm on Instagram at Little Hearts Academy, and I'm also on Instagram, of course, with Imperfect Heroes Podcast. So keep an eye on that. I'll get the word out once that's ready to go. So there's lots of things going on with Little Hearts Academy. I'm so excited. I love what I do. I love what I do. And so I'm very fortunate with that, and to have such amazing little people that inspire me every day. And I'm always sad when it's a work day and the kids don't come. Well, you know, those aren't ever a lot of fun, but I miss my kids. I just miss my kids. So I hope that you'll watch that. Watch us on Imperfect Heroes Podcast. And I will tell you, just in closing, that last month, the last 2 days of the month, I was like 2 downloads shy of hitting my record for downloads in a month. And so I just put a little blurb out there on my Facebook and Instagram, and I said, I only need 2 more. Well, let me just tell you, I got like 50. Yay! And I shattered the record. Now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to beat that record, because it's a great record to have, and a great one to try and work forward to. So go ahead and go on the imperfectheroespodcast.com, and all my episodes are there. You can look for the ones that interest you and follow me. That really helps the word get out. And leave a rating and review. And it's so easy when you go to that website, imperfectheroespodcast.com. And there's just a thing to click, rate, and you can leave a little note. And I've had some that were just 3 words, you know, terrific, fantastic. And I really like those. 5 stars is the appropriate number of stars. But the more we can get that out, then it's easier for other parents to find us. And we can help them too. And so I hope that you find joy in life. I hope that you are able to, even in the hard times, take a breath and think about the things that are great. Do you have a roof over your head? Working toilets are an amazing thing, right? We have cars maybe that can get us around. We have a job to go to. Even if it's a job we don't really like, it's going to pay the bills. And that's better than having no job. And so just think about, I have clothes to wear. I have way more food than I need. You know, there's always something to sit and look at and ponder on the blessings that you have been given from our Father on high. So I hope that you'll go and support the podcast and go to the Little Hearts Academy site. It's Little Hearts Academy USA. If you just do Little Hearts Academy, you get some school in India. So to the USA part, and you'll be able to see some of the things that are on there and some of the things that you can look at and enjoy. So I am so grateful that you're here, Julie, and too, I want to say thanks for joining in. I haven't seen you. I don't know, is this your first time? It might be, but I am so glad that you're here on this. And let's find joy in parenting. See you guys. Bye-bye.